typical scene from a well-known comedy series. It's probably also fairly typical of what relationships were like between many white people and Asians during the days of the British Empire. Lazy, skiving natives locked in a deceitful battle of wits against Lord Reith's genteel elements of society.
How much do we pay the Funkerwaller?
3 rupees a week, sir.
Let's see, that's about 4 and 6, isn't it?
That's correct, sir.
Doesn't seem very much, does it? Or we to give him a rise, say 1 more rupee? What do you think, Sergeant Major?
Won't stop him falling asleep, sir.
No, true. Besides, if we give 1 a rise, they'll all want it. We've only got 1. That's beside the point, Ashford. A thing like that can interfere with the whole structure of Indian society.
You may think it's a good thing the British are able to laugh at their own past, but the British Empire was no joke for those on the receiving end. It's because of the poverty the empire left behind that so many Asians and West Indians accepted invitations to come here after the war for work.
There are a number of threats on different levels, but if we're talking about terrorism, I mean, the major threat is still Islamicism. But if we're talking about terrorism, I mean, the major threat is still Islamicism.
Stephen Harper is a solid representative of the Christian religious right, almost a carbon copy of the radical right in the United States. In recent years, the increasingly fascist and totalitarian laws implemented in Canada have caused many Canadians to question which side of history the Conservatives have put our futures in. How could a once powerful and respected country have fallen so far in the eyes of the world? How could we have left 300,000 Canadians to be homeless? And how could we leave 1 in 4 children to go hungry? The reason why a leader with only 26% of the popular vote can act so irresponsibly and get away with it is both obvious and easily fixable. I'm Darren Howard. This is the Harper Vision.
These funds will be used to help re-equip the assembly line for Toyota in Cambridge, and also to enable Toyota to manufacture right here the very first hybrid cars assembled in Canada.
In Canada, laid-off workers are forced into lower quality and more precarious jobs, with a significant reduction in pay following the loss of good full-time employment. Or so says a groundbreaking study commissioned by the Canadian Auto Workers Union, Canada's largest private sector trade union. The study suggests that a statistically significant number of Canadians are finding themselves underemployed and with increased job insecurity. Such conclusions appear to belie the assertions of Canada's neoconservative government, which claims that its policies of privatization and deregulation stimulate job creation and encourage prosperity in Canada.
I don't think our economy is booming, and we send a lot of our manufacturing jobs overseas, so that's probably the lack of jobs right there coming out of university. At the same time, more and more people are moving to the big cities, so I think that at the same time too, there's probably a flood of people coming in that are taking jobs away from new grads.
I think we all have these super high expectations coming into the university of landing your dream job right away, and that's not the reality, and you have to be willing to put in the time of some crap job that you don't love necessarily, and then that opens the gate for your future.
Today I heard ceremonial. They didn't take it serious. I had an opportunity to speak to the Governor General prior to the main room. This is how it is to the general public. Why? The Governor General is so important to us as treaty people. Before contact, there was 90 to 100 million of our people on Turtle Island. Now there's only 1 million of us.
There was no problem with living a long, prosperous life in Canada before colonization. The Hudson's Bay Company became rich and powerful using the existing trade routes of the indigenous population. It was Native leaders who showed the white people how to survive and prosper during the first years of exploration. But have no doubt, the continent was full of life, teeming with civilizations. Aboriginal life was so full that up to 100 million people were actively trading across both North and South American continents, with wealth and people so vast that the Mayan and Aztec nations built cities of gold that rivaled the Egyptians, with technology that we still cannot duplicate today. But the story that is never told is the one about the Aboriginal Holocaust, the imperial war that has been fought for countless generations since the arrival and first contact of the white monetary system and royalty in North America.
Is terrific news for the Canadian automotive industry. As you know, our government's top priority remains creating economic growth and well-paying jobs for Canadians. And this project will create hundreds of them.
So let's take a look at the jobs theory that Harper is promoting. He's at Toyota promoting the fact that $34 million is going to create 150 Canadian jobs within 33 million Canadians. That amounts to a 0.000000448% net increase in jobs. This is marginal, considering Canada is now reporting a 7.8% unemployment rate, an unemployment rate that is false. This unemployment rate does not take into consideration that Conservatives have tightened all the rules for UI and welfare. The Conservatives tightening the rules has caused less people to get checks, and when less people get help, the Conservatives believe that makes the government look better. So if you add it all up, Harper's strategy to create jobs is an abject failure, to say the least.
In 1977, the book Fuel Economy of the Gasoline Engine, which was published by the Shell Oil Company, documents that Shell scientists were able to achieve 149.95 miles per gallon on a 1947 Studebaker.
The second story that is not being talked about is the story about the luxury car that Harper is promoting. The Lexus RX 450h is a hybrid vehicle that is part of the green strategy that Conservatives have thought up for themselves. The RAV 450 might get an amazing fuel rate compared to those vehicles that are out there, but that falls short of the amazing 200 miles per gallon rating a 5,000-pound test car got at Popular Mechanics in the 1940s.
950 miles per US gallon. When the specials began, it was they managed to get into the hundreds of miles per gallon.
Copyrighted right now is carburetor technology that would give a 5,000-pound car or a Humvee 200 miles to the gallon.
And allow it to build right here the first hybrid cars ever assembled in Canada.
And then we just have to point out the fact that Toyota is only assembling the cars in Canada. We aren't manufacturing anything. Those discrepancies, though, pale in comparison to the one major fact that Harper and the Conservative-controlled media is ignoring. The average Canadian has no hope of affording the RX 450. At an estimated $35,000, with prices ranging up to $60,000, the luxury hybrid Toyota is far out of reach of the average Canadian citizen, who's lucky to make a scant $25,000 a year. Too bad for you, Canada. No jobs, and a government paying for a car nobody can afford. The Harper termination plan is a simple one. The Globe and Mail ran a report on the details of that plan. There are only three things that the Harper Conservatives seem to be concerned with: the economic development of natural resources, to establish productive tables for land claims and treaty negotiations where realistically possible, and to establish native-run education centers that are up to provincial caliber, whatever that is. Of course, if you're not an Indian band in resource-rich areas, you're pretty well left out in the cold on these grounds. But that's an uncomfortable fact, and the Conservatives probably prefer we ignore that. The economic development for a reserve is no different than for a province, or for the whole country for that matter. It's all about natural resources for Conservatives, and not about creating any manufacturing or long-term industry for development. That would take infrastructure, and none of the government plans are about infrastructure. The government is not interested in creating thousands of jobs in every region, just a few hundred for a select few people. No matter white or native, that's what happens in Canada today. Remember, there are no big prosperity plans for any community, white or native, unless you are resource rich or you support the military infrastructure.
We haven't seen anything like this in almost 100 years, when bosses are asking people to take less money when they're already profitable.
Ignoring the fact that no jobs are even being considered, the government then focuses on how treaty negotiations are going bad. For decades, local bands have known that no jobs of any type are being developed by the government for any long-term prosperity for band members, and that's one of the main reasons why bands are not signing deals. Manufacturing, innovation, and research and development programs are all allocated to other areas, while bands are left in the cold. Remember, the government is only focusing on where bands have a realistic possibility of terminating treaty negotiations. A direct violation of the Canadian Constitution and flying in the face of any common sense. But remember, the Conservatives break the law all the time. They are never held accountable by their right-wing supporters, who apparently don't care that there are 300,000 homeless or 1 in 4 children go hungry due to Conservative right-wing policies. Just ask anyone who's applied for social services or unemployment insurance.
How did this happen that boomers became the architects of a scorched earth public policy for the next generation? Are we not supposed to be stewards for the next generation?
We have an entire nation of highly educated, underemployed, creative people who are starting to kind of feel like they were sold a fraud.
From the time an American child reaches the 6th grade, they are taught that the key to success in life is to do well in high school so that they can get accepted to the best possible college. The better grades they get in high school, the better college they will have an opportunity to get into.
We need to stop funneling so many students through this program that leaves them with debt and unemployment on the other side.
Every country on earth at the moment is reforming public education. There are 2 reasons for it. The first of them is economic. People are trying to work out, how do we educate our children to take their place in the economies of the 21st century? How do we do that, given that we can't anticipate what the economy will look like at the end of next week? The second, though, is cultural. Every country on earth is trying to figure out, how do we educate our children so they have a sense of cultural identity and so that we can pass on the cultural genes of our communities while being part of the process of globalization. How do we square that circle?
1,600 kilometers in 2 months' time, in 0 below temperatures, the young Nishiyu walkers of Cree Northern Quebec have finally made it here. So you would think Stephen Harper would be here. No, he's not. He is in Toronto right now. He's in Toronto. He's greeting 2 pandas from China. It sounds stupid, but it's true.
The old saying, wealth equals health, continues to ring true. A new report by the Canadian Medical Association found that lower-income Canadians appear to have poorer health. And with the income gap widening, that means that our health system is failing more and more Canadians.
We need to stop funneling so many students through this program that leaves them with debt and unemployment on their side.